What is this dark place, Kyle?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, you seem to have like the mists of time are just rolling back for us here, and it's very different. I mean, like, there's an air of destiny here, but I'm having trouble putting my finger on it.
Is it always this dark outside of Rowan County, Kyle?
Typically. I mean, you know, you cross the Yadkin River and the sun brightens up and you're there. Then when you go the other way, north or south, east, west, and everything gets a little bit darker and you're like, why did I leave in the first place? But I feel like we had to, right? We needed to come here,
yes,
and we needed to talk about this specific event. We are at Guilford Courthouse National Military Park, which was a battle that happened during the Revolutionary War here in Guilford County. At this point, Guilford County is still the backcountry, so there is not a lot of settlement. So the closest thing that we have to this battlefield was the courthouse, and so Guilford Courthouse is what it's named as. And one of the few major significant battles in the Revolutionary War.
One of the neat things too is we're currently standing on what is called the Old Salisbury Road. And this would have been the major thoroughfare getting you from the middle part of Virginia down to Salisbury, Charlotte, and into South Carolina during the 1780s. One of the main reasons Greene chose to fight here is because he was going to straddle this road and use the same tactics that they used at the Battle of Cowpens, which is called a defense in depth, which means there were 3 different lines of defenders. Militia in the front, who were absolutely green. They hoped they would be able to fire at least once before they ran away. A little bit more seasoned people in the middle who they hoped would be able to fire a couple more times. And then the Continental soldiers, the really experienced guys, they were in that 3rd line, and they were there to try to break up the British as they came up the hill.
We're standing right around where the American 3rd line would have been. And Aaron talked earlier, there were 3 different lines of defense. This was the last line. This is where the experienced soldiers would be ready to face the British. As you notice, right in front of us is a cannon, which normally...
You don't want to be on this end of this.
No, especially not in 1781. Today, we're probably okay, but it's also a really cool shot, so we wanted to do that as well. When we were walking up here, it takes a little while going up Old Salisbury Road to get to this line. You were talking about the Battle of Cowpens. You talked about that in the last clip as well. Tried to make this a similar strategy setup. What made it different here, though?
Well, there's 2 things different about the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. Number 1 is the trees that are here, and the whole forest land in particular. And then also number 2, the scale of it. If you ever go to the Battle of Cowpens, which is probably my favorite battlefield to go to ever, you're in an open field and everything is fairly compact. It all happens within about 200-300 yards. And you know, that battle was over very, very quickly. But here at Guilford Courthouse, it was very different. Number 1, you had a lot of trees. So the way it looks around us right now is probably not too much different from what it would have looked like in 1781, except there was probably more scrub growth, which, if you remember, in the Revolution, they fought almost shoulder to shoulder, which whenever you're marching in lines through the scrub growth, you're having to constantly move around trees and stuff like that, get back in your lines and keep going. That causes a big issue for order and cohesion. So, you know, the British actually lose contact with each other for a little while during the battle, which is not good. And the Americans, they're not quite connected enough to be able to take advantage of that. But this is one place where the terrain really plays an important part in the battle, as well as this battle happened in March of 1781. It was very cold. It happened early in the morning, like as soon as the sun came up, and the British soldiers hadn't had their breakfast yet, which, you know, they were not very happy about.
So let's talk about the sequence of the battle and how it all went down. Remember, it's early morning, it's cold, and so there was mist that was around us this morning, but the mist that we had today was much less than it probably would have been that morning in 1781. And so as the first line, remember the militia, these are inexperienced volunteers who are here to help out. They are in a line, and with the mist as thick as it was, they were probably surprised by the British troopers who were coming through. And so they're going to get maybe 1 or 2 shots off. And remember, it takes a long time to reload as well. So 1 or 2 shots it's not nothing. I mean, it takes some effort to get those off, but once those shots are made, they're going to turn around and run away. So that first line starts to melt away as soon as the British get up towards and close to them.
Whenever that first line melts away, there is a small section of that line that goes to the southeast and actually takes a couple British regiments with them out of the fight. That's when Cornwallis loses some of his cohesion and his communication with his army. The rest of the army, though, moves straight towards the American second line. And there, the British aren't necessarily stopped for long, but they do have to put up more of a fight than they did with the first line. Whenever they are able to finally break through there, they had to then contend with people coming back through the woods towards the American third line.
The American third line, remember, the Continentals, the vets, their experience. They're the ones who are supposed to hold and not retreat after they get a couple shots off. And this is where the main part of the fighting happens. This is where the heaviest and fiercest part of the fighting happens. Is going to be on that third line. Now tell us a little bit more about the cavalry.
Well, the American cavalry had been basically absent for this fight. Cornwallis was wondering where they were. He hadn't seen them. The British cavalry were off to the southwest doing their thing with those 2 British regiments that kind of went away from the army. So he didn't know where his cavalry was either, really. All of a sudden, right here where we're standing, that American cavalry comes in and charges into the British. Cornwallis realizes all of a sudden, oh wow, I'm about to be defeated. I've got to do something. So he makes a very fateful decision, something that no commander ever really wants to make. He's got to turn his cannons, these are the American cannons, he has to turn his cannons filled with grape shot, which is basically like a shotgun with
little pieces,
bullets about the size of your thumb in it. He turns those on the American horsemen who are attacking some of his best troops. There's no way for those bullets or that artillery shot going into this mass of men to be able to tell the difference between the two. So he actually opens fire on his own men.
The effect of this firing of the grape shot, yes, he's making a decision to definitely kill his own troops. Once that shot has rung out, this is when the Americans start to turn and start to retreat. Because having cannons firing point blank at you, very different than having a line of muskets firing at you. Cannons are much more accurate, especially with grape shot, because it's shooting those projectiles everywhere. And so that's when that third line, the experienced line, that's when they start to turn and retreat. And that is effectively the end of the battle. When Cornwallis makes that decision, that's when things start to finally come to an end for the Battle of Guilford Courthouse.
So, who won?
Well, okay, so let's think about it. America won the Revolution because we wouldn't be here if we hadn't done that. And Yorktown was like October of 1781, and this is March of 1781. So I would say, I mean, we won because America won the Revolution. So, of course, we won this battle because we're starting to wrap it up, right?
But the Americans retreated.
Oh, yeah, they did. Well, then how in the world does that work? How do you lose a battle and then several months later win the war?
You're married, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
You should know about winning a battle and then losing a war.
Very true. Strategic retreat?
Strategic retreat, yes.
Strategic retreat.
Strategic retreat.
Got it.
The British lost so many men during this battle, they couldn't replenish them. So Cornwallis decides to move towards Wilmington so that he can get resupplied. He writes letters up north asking for supplies. He thinks he's going to get them, but then a letter comes in saying, no, we're not going to be able to give you supplies. You need to march your army overland through North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, and eastern Virginia to a place called Yorktown. And there we will be able to resupply you. And of course, it's there in October of 1781 that he is surrounded by Washington and he surrenders. So technically, Guilford Courthouse is one of the most important battles of the American Revolution.
Even though we lost.
Even though we lost.
Even though we lost. Okay. That's why we're here, obviously. We wouldn't have been here if it was some type of minor battle that has no major consequence. This is a huge one. This is why it's a national military park, because it is very, very important. And there are monuments scattered throughout this entire place. that honor the people who fought here. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up in just a second. We have focused a lot on the battle itself. We have focused a lot on the conclusion of what happened afterwards and the lead up to it. What we haven't really talked about was one of the, who might be considered a hero of this battle, even though he lost.
He only planned it and, you know, helped execute it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or actually, he executed it, you know. Yeah, so this behind us is General Nathaniel Greene, who took over the American Army in early 1780, or late 1780, early 1781. And really got it into fighting shape very quickly and fought some of the most important battles of the American Revolution that put the British General Cornwallis at the siege of Yorktown. Without him, we would not be speaking American English today. We would be speaking British English today, I believe, yes.
Yes, and something I don't know that we've mentioned yet, but we focus a lot on George Washington for the American Revolution.
Of course.
And a lot of the major battles at the beginning of the Revolution happened in the northern colonies. But the major fighting that happened right near the end was in the southern colonies. And so Nathaniel Greene was in control of this army that was they were the major fighting force at this point in 1781 in the South, because that's where a lot of the action was happening. So he is here at this park memorialized in a phenomenal statue that I'm going to keep talking about because I think it is awesome. My thing to Aaron was, if I can mess up something, you know, not do something that needed to be done and still get a statue like that, I'm going to be good. And then I'm going to get cut off by the dog's leash. But yeah, so we wanted to make sure we talked about him because we talked about Cornwallis and his role in this, but Nathaniel Greene had a role in getting us here and then afterwards getting us to Yorktown.
And Greensboro is also named after him, which is just right up the road. We are standing here at a kind of a curious place. In front of us are buried two very important North Carolinians. There should be three, but only two are buried here. Two signers of the Declaration of Independence. But they didn't have anything to do with the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. It's kind of curious as to why they're here. In the late 1800s, there was this whole movement to try to make something out of Guilford Courthouse, to try to make it this big thing. A private company took over the land here, and one of their ideas was, let's make Guilford Courthouse Battleground the premier Revolutionary War cemetery in North Carolina. So they actually dug up two signers of the Declaration of Independence, brought them here and reburied them in 1894. Now, if you think about this, a good time to make a cemetery to the Revolution would have been either during or just after the Revolution, not
110 years
after it. Yeah. So nothing ever came of that. But you do have this curious thing of this monument here to two guys who had nothing to do with what happened here, other than the fact that, you know, they helped play a role in getting the Revolution going. And that tells us a lot about how we interpret and try to memorialize history over time.
And all credit to the National Park Service. They even make a point in the sign over here to say, these men had nothing to do with the battle, but the people who fought here, the Americans who fought here, and the men who signed the Declaration of Independence both had the same goal. They both had the same thought in mind, and they both wanted the same thing for their country. And so they do draw a distinction to it, but without taking away from their significance and from the significance of the battle. Even if I gesticulate, am I in frame?
Yes.
Okay. It was recording, right? Yep, we're good. All right.
Oh. Yeah, this one's been...
So we are at the Battle of, well, no, let me try that again. So we're gonna wait on that, whatever that is, to go by.
I think the crows are perfect during this if they come through the microphone. I'm not sure they will.
They might a little bit.
Oh, the leaf cleaner to keep the...
Oh, that's why it's so loud. Well, that makes sense. And 1781. I was right on that one.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's months later that by August.
You can see me.
You gotta get me in. I know Kyle's a giant, but you gotta get me in too.
Can we sit her right here?
Good night. I don't know. It might be cold. Let's see. Oh, come here.
Ish. I mean, it's what do you think? Are you not a fan?
She looks like. Does not like. Does not like.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll cut it in post.
It's fine. It's fine. I just gotta like, whoa. Like, trying to get hold of Molly.